Hi and hello, and you're welcome to Range. And welcome to the first session of Range this year, which is on relentless thinking. I remember I was in Abuja when I was contemplating and I collided or stumbled upon this thought. And obviously I've always been engrossed with the thought of what can we actually do to solve the problems that we have without necessarily thinking to government, or even sometimes without necessarily putting it on God, that God is going to help us solve these things. It's important, especially for people who are in the religious and the spiritual circles, to understand that there are some things God will not do. If you give him 1,000 years, he will not do it. The only way it can get done if someone rises and someone gets it done. And so it's a way to reorientate your mind for you to really get to understand that many of the things you're praying for will actually be answered by men. You need a job, you need money, you want a better country, you want a better economy. It's people basically who would help solve these problems. And so we cannot just abdicate all of that responsibilities to God because God has actually given the earth to men. If the believers who are supposed to walk in the righteousness of God do not do it, the unbelievers who do not choose the righteousness of God will go through it. And the believers will continue to pray and complain that God is not helping matters. Okay, so it's important we understand that political nature, of the kingdom of God, and which is of the right that there are certain things we have to do. I think that we can actually borrow from the Pharisees and the Sadducees at that time when they were expecting a savior and they thought that Jesus was going to come politically, physically to come and take the power back to Israel. Now, it's important that we have to think in that sense, but not about spiritual matters, but about solving our own problems and making sure that we're able to solve things and get this. Okay, so let's just get right into it. Now, when it comes to relentless thinking, it's a system of thinking that allows you to come by a systematic action. What are the things you can do? What are the things you should do? Okay. Now, it's also the ability to continue through a thought without interruption. Now, one of the core ideas that I had with this relentless thinking is if you are going on a map, and you miss your direction or you miss your turning, what the map automatically does is to reroute you. The map does not condemn you, the map does not judge you, the map simply reroutes you. And so there are many mistakes that we have done, there are many choices that we have made that did not lead us in the best path of destiny or the path of progress. Now, we shouldn't beat ourselves about those choices and decisions. What we should actually do is to sit down and rethink. Now, that's where the relentless thinking is about rerouting potential to maintain that you still have that vision and you still have that destination at the top of mind. So the core thinking process here is, what can you do differently? You've tried this, you've tried that. What can you do differently? And you also get to understand that in this state of thinking, there are certain limitations that will come, and some of those limitations we're actually going to address it. Now, I would also be ending this session, obviously, with some sort of task assignment for everyone to carry out in such a way that we really put these things to test in our lives, in order to come up with solutions for our personal problems or whatever the case is. Now, we need to understand this, that the core of the range itself is to help people with that mindset that we are solution providers. Whether it's personal problems, financial problems, career problems, political problems, economic problems, we know how to think through things. One of the most poorly developed part of many of us is our mind. Okay, a lot of people have highly developed spirits. They pray and do all the spiritual rituals and all, but their mind is not productive. And so they're not able to translate every resource that they have spiritually into something that benefits them. And as long as we're here on earth, in as much as the spiritual part is important, the mental part is also very important, because that's one of the things that actually does give manifestation to many of the instructions and revelations and prophecies and insights that we have received while engaging with spiritual things. So when it comes to that relentless thinking, I'm just going to walk you through some of the protocols and the approach, and so that it becomes pragmatic. Usually my sessions are not very long. They're actually to inspire questions, and pragmatism, in our approach to things. So one of the first things you need to understand about this mode of thinking is that you must not overburden yourself with the solution. Just think on what the next step should be. So you've tried this, it didn't work out. Okay, what's going to be the next step? So you must always be thinking and focusing on improving, not perfecting. Okay? The goal is on improvement, is on iteration, and not perfection. Because perfection actually limits a lot of people. However, everybody is open to improvement. Okay, one of the biggest rooms, they say, is the room for improvement. And that actually begs this question. One of the reasons why improvement has not really been an African thing, imitation is more of an African thing than improvement. And I always saddle myself with this question. Imagine if I was the only man in the world, or imagine if Africans were the only ones in the world. Do you think this world would be as technologically advanced as it were today? Now, if Africans were not in the world at all, do you think the world is going to actually be a lot better? Now, these are questions that don't have a direct answer, but these are questions that allow you to think deeply on some of the choices and the decisions we have made that is responsible for our positions and our lives and almost our destiny, as the case may be. And so it's important that we begin to make the choice to choose to do things differently. And it's from those choices that we can begin to seek it. So for example, you want to, I'll give an example. Maybe you have a goal, and your goal is to make 5 times the amount you made last year, and to make it this year. And you are currently on a job. Now, the only thing that can guarantee that if your choice is to stay on the job, the only thing that guarantees that you get 5 times the amount you got last year, this year, is if your salary multiplies 5 times. And you also know that you cannot continue to do the same thing and expect your salary to multiply 5 times. Now, if your company makes 5 times the money they made last year, I'm sure you know that would not automatically translate into 5 times salary increase. Okay, so for your company, so if you are invested in, I want to make 5 times my salary, but I want to stay in the company that I'm staying, then that company needs to make not less than 60% increase in what they made last year. Did I say 60%? 400%. That's 4 times. 4 times the amount they made for you to get that fraction of salary, and that is for a company that is customer centric. Now, when you keep thinking that way, you get to realize that there is a dead end. And the dead end is you must be quick to think about it. There's a very high chance that if I continue at this job, I'm not going to get 5 times this year that I got next year. So you move on. So what exactly is the issue? This company does not have that capacity to pay me 5 times. Now, do you have the skills that can force the company to pay you 5 times? So you begin to break things down. So it first is about payment, financial increase of the company. Now it's about, do you have the capacity to demand that financial increase for you? The next thing is, do you have the skills that can force the company to pay you that much? Then you begin to go down, okay, is the company actually paying market value for the skills and what you're bringing to the table? If not, okay, what company makes as much money that would be able to pay me 5 times what I earned this year? Also, does the company have the financial commitment to make this happen? So this is how you begin to think and you begin to iterate. This is the process of relentless thinking. And so relentless thinking is not a lazy man's job. It really takes a lot of mental energy to think, put thoughts on paper. You might be there for 30 minutes, 40 minutes, and you're just thinking line upon lines and writing the flow diagram. This is the reason why a lot of people don't increase, because it takes a lot to think. Thinking is what solves the problem of many people, but many people don't think. They actually prefer other people to think for them. Okay, so the first thing is focus on improvement and not perfection. And one way to do that is iteration. What is the next best step? What is the challenge in front of me? What can I do to surmount that challenge? Do I have the capacity or the capabilities to overcome this challenge? Is it an internal problem or an external problem? Okay, you begin to break it down. This is one of the things a strategist gets to do for you, or a coach, as the case may be, to break things down for you to be able to see things in a much clearer way. Now, the other approach to this is called the timed response, meaning that it's a quick, rapid fire. Now, one of the things the quick, rapid fire does for you is that it allows you to bypass part of your logical core and go into your subconscious core. Why do you need the subconscious core? Because every program that is responsible for where you are today is in your subconscious, not your conscious. Okay, your conscious actually just guides your locomotive, your day-to-day operations, but the programming itself is in your subconscious. So when you do this rapid fire question and answer, you are able to quickly bypass that logical side and you go into your subconscious. So the things you usually come up with in those rapid fire are the programming that you have in your subconscious. So when you're thinking of solutions, to problems, you have to be quick about it. Okay, I have this problem. What's the next best thing? And usually the first thing that comes to your mind, write it down, follow through with it, and you continue to do it until you get to a point that you see yourself going in circles. By the time you see yourself going in circles, that means you've exhausted the route you can take. That is one of the first points of limitation. I'm not going to get ahead of myself. I'm going to touch on that before we get to the end of this session. So timed response is very important. You must be quick with your response. Then the third thing is your questions must be deep. And this is why sometimes you require a coach to do this for you, because many of us cannot bring ourselves to ask ourselves deep, painful, hurtful questions. Truth is, a lot of us are not honest with ourselves. We have this ego, we have this delusion, that wants to paint things in the way they really aren't. So it's the person who has nothing to lose or nothing to gain, as it were, that can actually ask you those tough, and those very hard questions. So that's very important. Now, I mentioned something before, that when you start going in circles, you have gotten to a point of limitation. That is your personal limitation. Now, these limitations are a function of your experience, a function of your exposure, a function of your knowledge, and the events that have happened in your life. When you get to that point, you need something external to trigger something else in you, or else you continue in that valley. Something external could be reading a book that gives you extra knowledge, listening to a podcast, or listening to someone else. Ask someone else the same question and try to hear the responses and see if it was the same as what you would have answered given the circumstance. Okay, it's very key and very important. So what are the ways of engaging this relentless thinking processes and protocols? Number one, when you begin to ask yourself these questions, or when there's a problem before you and you want to begin to engage with that problem, there are different scopes that you need to engage with. Number one is the historical scope. Now, when the problem is before you, historical scope is also your personal limitations, but it has its place and it has its part. So What are the things you know about this problem? What caused it? What's the history? How did it start? Okay, what's the experience? What are the events? Based off of your own knowledge and experience, can you define this problem or can you define this challenge? This gives you the foundation to work with. Okay, so if it has to do with a job, um, why did I sign up for this job? Is this the best job I could have gone for? Was it because of the pay? Was it because of location? Was I thinking of something else? Was I thinking of housing? Okay, what limited my choices into making this particular decision? Okay, so that's your historic scope, and it's very important. So that is the foundation that starts everything. Now, the next phase is called the point scope. Now, the point scope is different from the historic scope. Now, the point scope means that when that problem comes, what are the things in the surrounding of that problem that you can see that can help you to know more about that problem or lead you towards a solution to the problem? What can you move around? What can you repiece? What can you rearrange or readjust? What can you transpose in the surrounding of that problem that can actually, remember, it's about adjustments and not perfection. What can even just make it easier? Okay, it's not about solving it entirely, but what makes it easier, less burdensome, takes away the hassles, or shines a bit of light, into the whole thing. So, what's the physical surrounding information around the problems that can actually help you with valuable data? Now, the third thing now is focus scope. We've talked about historic scope. We've talked about point scope. Now we talk about focus scope. Now, what is focus scope? Now, what do you know about the problem's nature? Now, this is beyond the physical environment of that problem. It's about your own repertoire. So this is where you can ask other people, oh, what do you know? Has this happened to you in the past? What did you do? How do you solve it? Have you consulted Google? Okay, there are many questions you ask. And for example, so I'm into coaching, and when people ask me certain questions, I know that they have not gotten to they are lazy. Okay, you get one of the first points to consult with a coach is when you have tried everything. You've tried the historic scope, you've tried the point scope, you've tried the focus scope, and you are still not being satisfied with what you get. Now, because the coach comes in that focus scope, okay, what else can you know? Who else? Whose opinion, you can ask. But you cannot ask a coach a question that you can type on Google and Google gives you an answer. It's not a what question. You ask a coach a how question. It's not about what can I do. It's how can I go. It's not what is this problem. It's how can I solve this problem. You ask yourself the questions of why. You ask a coach or a mentor or anyone or a strategist how. Because what will actually get you out of the problem is the how. A lot of people know the full analysis of their problems, but they don't know how to get out of it. So you must understand, you must learn to ask the right questions on time. Because for example, when people have consulting sessions with me, you don't have all day. You would have first given me what you want to talk about. Go and do your research about the questions. Only ask me questions that can guide you. So don't ask what questions, ask how questions. The coach can ask you what questions to get to the bottom of the issue, why questions, and then prefers how answers to you. Okay, so that's very important. Now, the other part is the plus scope. Now, the plus scope talks about what can I add? So, what can I add to this thing? What can I bring in to solve, to make it easier, And so, is it a skill? So when you're thinking of bringing things, okay, I don't have the skill that will make me earn 5 times. Okay, what is that skill? Oh, okay, maybe it's data analytics. Okay, maybe it's project management. Maybe it's artificial intelligence. Once you know that, then you know what to do. And then you now begin to set goals to commit to these things, okay? Now, because these are short sessions and I really want my sessions to trigger more questions, because one of the best way I get to know that people have interacted with this enough is the kind of questions they begin to ask. For people who don't ask questions, it actually just tells me that they were not paying attention, or they were not really focused, on the things that were going on during the session. Um, the nature of these sessions are also concentrated. So sometimes you might have to watch it a couple of times in order for your mind to be at the right space, to be able to ask or get insight on certain things. It happens, and that's how some things happen sometimes. So it's very, very key, and it's very important. Now, I'm going to end this session by saying this. You might not know the importance of this session and why we're having it at the beginning of the year. It's because I laugh, right? There are lots of challenges that will come this year, and you need to have already prepared yourself on how to think in order to quickly navigate through those challenges. I always say this: the best time to dig a well is not when you're thirsty. You dig a well the moment you know that a time will come when you become thirsty. Now, this is the time when you know that you will become thirsty. So the question is, how will you dig the well? One of the things that will help you through that is relentless thinking. And so this is the assignment or the task that I have for you. Now, you need to understand is you don't need to bring this. It's just for you to work on personally with yourself. I want you to pick a particular challenge, big challenge that you have from 2024 that is coming into 2025, and add it with something you have heard about 2025 that brings fear, anxiety, or a challenge, and put it as the problem you want to solve. I want you to use everything we've talked about in relentless thinking to try to solve the problem. You will hit challenges, you will hit roadblocks. Sometimes you just have to pause a little bit, make your mind clear, and then revisit it. But the goal of relentless thinking is do not stop until you get to a sense of clarity that you are satisfied with, that has taken you from a point of indecision to a point that at least you know what to do. So the next problem can now be how to do, but you know why the problem exists. That's the first question you need to solve. What is the problem? 360-degree scope of the problem, and then how do you go about this problem? Okay, so you write them down, test your mind, and engage relentless thinking as much as possible. If you have any questions or concerns, you can always write them in the comment section, and I'll be more than happy to help you in that way. All right, so this is how we're starting the year. We should hit the ground running. There are lots of other things, and you can also take it up, and test your personal limitations. Okay, there's going to be fuel scarcity, for example. What do you know about fuel scarcity? What causes fuel scarcity? What are the indicators? What's the supply chain? Learn, okay, and that's how to increase the quality of the thoughts that you have. I really do hope that this is going to help you, because this is actually going to be very useful for you coming into this year. All right, so I wish you all the best. More information on what the next session is going to be will be in the group, and then I look forward to you being the solution to the world that God has brought you to. So next time we'll see. Cheers and have a great day.